Alright, we're coming to the end of our study guides. This is a technical details section. All you techies and nerds will get off on this. The rest of you are going to go, oh my gosh, this isn't fun, this isn't creative. Well, you still need to know this stuff, it's useful. How many lines, it says circle, how many lines of resolution would typically be SD? SD means standard definition. Okay, so is standard definition, not high definition, that's your hint. The standard definition 640 by 480, 1280 by 720, or 920 by 1080. And they abbreviate that to 480p. I'll explain what the p is in a second. 720, 1080. How many lines of resolution? So the more lines of resolution you have, the better the picture, the sharper the picture. You get these big screen TVs and they've got 4,000 lines of resolution. That's 4K. However, we're talking right now about 480, 720, 1080 because this is an old state test that has been developed and they don't talk about 4K yet to my knowledge. Yep, 480 is standard resolution. And they really say that anything under 600 is a standard resolution. Anything over 600 they say is high definition. And don't anyone ask me what the answer is to the next question when I just said it because you weren't paying attention. In fact, I'm going to be mean and just skip it and hope you guys were paying attention. What do you get when you combine compressor, decompressor? What you do is you take off the MPR SER there and the OMFPR and then you combine co and dec and you get a codec. That's how you abbreviate compressor, decompressor. A codec. And we're going to watch a video on what codecs are.
What are codecs and containers, and what is the difference between them? That is what I'm going to explain in this video. First of all, let's take a look at what a codec is. Codec means compressor, decompressor, and it's basically a piece of software that's used to encode video or audio. For example, a certain camera uses the H.264 codec to encode a video, and after that it saves this video to an SD card. If we want to play this video on a computer, the computer also needs that H.264 codec in order to decode the video so that we can watch it. Frequently used codecs are pre-installed on your PC, which is why it's able to play most videos out there. Now, there are many different codecs. There is H.264, Mpeg 2, Xvid, DNxHD, and many others. Also, these are just video codecs. There are also lots of audio codecs. Every codec has its own features, advantages, and disadvantages. Some video codecs, for example, are excellent for video editing, while others are better for playback and distribution. Codecs are very important since they determine what the video will look like and, in case of an audio codec, what the audio will sound like. Luckily, there is a lot of information about specific codecs available online. Now, let's see what a container is. As the name suggests, a container is just a package, a box that contains the video and its audio, since many videos have sound in them. Examples of containers are .mov, .mp4, .avi, and many others. The container is the type of file that's used. Just like codecs, every container has its own special abilities, like support for subtitles and other data. Since the container is just some packaging material, it doesn't do anything to the quality of the video or the audio itself. The container and the codec are separate things. This means that you could have a video that uses the .mov container and is encoded using the H.264 codec, with the audio being encoded using the AAC codec. But you could also have a video that uses the .mov container and is encoded using the Mpeg 2 codec, with the audio being encoded using the MP3 codec. So the file extension tells you which container is used, but it doesn't tell you what codecs are used to encode the video and the audio. Something that can be quite confusing as well is that there are codecs that have the same name as a container. For example, there is a .mp4 container, but there is also an MP4 codec. The codec is a piece of software that's used to encode video or audio. There are many different codecs out there, and they all have their own features and advantages. The container is just a box that contains the video and its audio. Since the container isn't the same thing as the codec, the file extension doesn't tell you what codec is used.
Alright, they want you to know the difference between a compressor, decompressor, a codec, and a container. And this is pretty high tech. I kind of wonder why we teach this in TV Broadcast 1. But what I want you to know is that a container being different than a codec, a container usually starts with a dot. .mp4, .avi, those are some examples, okay? And the video shows you a little bit more about that, but really all I care about is for the state test you know there is a difference between a codec and a container, and just to have kind of a quick little kind of like a cheat sheet in your head, if it starts with a dot, it's a container. Alright, have you ever seen on TV, actually anywhere where there's video, they'll have a little watermark down here and it'll say this is the news station or whatever. This is the company, the video production company behind this video. That's their little brand. Well, that watermark, the brand logo at the bottom corner of the screen, is also called a bug. Very simple term that everyone uses is don't forget to put the bug on there. Over at SFCN we did. We had a SF17 bug. This one is ABC HD. TV stations like to remind viewers who is behind the production, so a bug is a common sight, often instantly recognizable. Okay, now we're going to go into some other technical stuff. How many frames per second, that's what FPS stands for, frames per second, were determined by filmmakers to show smooth motion. I just had an idea. You guys ever see on some textbooks that someone has done a little thing I call a flip a cartoon? They've drawn along the bottom corner of a textbook and they've got like a little stick figure running or something. Well, that's kind of the same thing that we figured out with film, like back in the about 1910 probably. That depending on how fast the photographs passed in front of the projector lens, you could convey smooth motion or not. Like really old movies like Charlie Chaplin or whatever, they only shot about 15 photographs or frames per second. And so it looked kind of halting. It looked kind of funny. It looked kind of sped up. But you could tell that it wasn't real. So that's a film strip. And what this is are individual photos, really. And they're running in front of a projector. Okay, so the story behind this is that, so that's the 1920s roughly. Film on a film camera and then on a film projector. And then thanks to Philo T. Farnsworth from Utah, who was plowing his field and thought of the lines as being something that could be transmitted, because we had radio, but we didn't have transmitted video. And he said, what if we could transmit lines across the air and then reconnect them? So we send over lines, we grab them, we reconnect them, and we got video.
Because way back in 1920, a farm boy named Philo T. Farnsworth came up with an idea that led to the first television picture. The idea of sending pictures through the air was always on his mind. And one day, while plowing a field, the answer came to him in the long, even rows left by the plow. Farnsworth realized that perhaps optical images could be transmitted in a series of electronic lines, creating a visual field. He drew a diagram of his idea for his chemistry teacher. And 7 years later, in 1927, that diagram became the blueprint for the first television camera. An image dissector tube, it was called, and the farm boy turned inventor created the first television picture.
Well, they finally came up with broadcast video, and they said, well, we need to set a resolution or a frame rate. And in the United States, we set a high frame rate. I don't know why I don't put it first, frames per second. But in Europe, they set a lower frame rate. So what was film again? 24 frames per second. In Europe, they came up with what they called the PAL format, and their frames per second are 25. They said, we can do one better than film, 24, let's do 25. And then I have here an old chart that shows where the PAL format is. It's in a lot of England and the British colonies, and I guess you could say some of South America still. But over here in America, we decided, hey, you know what, we can even do better than that. And by the way, NT stands for North America Television Standards Committee. Okay. So in North America, we decided to go, and I know this isn't on the study guide yet, I should put it in different order. We decided to go better than 25 frames per second because we're cool. We went to 30 frames per second. But I guess first I just show you this. PAL, 25 frames per second. North America, that would be Canada, 30 frames per second, except for there's a catch. So if you're wondering why did I not explain that whole frames per second thing in the order that you think it should have been done, is to see if you're paying attention. That's always the answer a teacher gives. Because we're going to move on now. We have a P and we have an I. And what does the P stand for in 720p? Have you ever seen that? Like if you're looking at buying a TV and you look at the box and it says 720p or 1080i or whatever. Well, we just learned that 720 before are how many lines of resolution, which would mean if it's 720, it's high definition. P stands for progressive. So now they not only said, well, we can send those lines across the air, but we can also decide whether they go in consecutive order, if they come in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 to 720, or whether they come in order of every other one, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. Then you go back and you fill in 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Sounds confusing, right? They call that interlaced. Progressive is when it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9. Interlaced is when it's 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Okay, so here we have progressive, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 9. Interlaced, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 2, 4, 6, 8. And the reason they came up with this interlaced thing is because sports look better if they're interlaced, supposedly, especially back in the day when it was lower resolution on everything. And it looked better, it looked like a little smoother motion. However, now interestingly enough, our main sports network, ESPN, has the broadcast standard of 720p. It's not even that high of high definition, I guess I could say. It's only 720 lines. It's not 1080. It's not 4,000, right? And they use progressive. So that's the standard we use over here in Spanish Fork. We just broadcast in 720p, and it's just barely high definition. Interlaced, progressive, lines of resolution, high definition, you're learning it all. And again, don't nobody ask me what the I stands for in 1080i because I just explained it for 5 minutes. So now you should be able to remember this. This is that North America Standards Committee, but you don't know why. What is the significance of the number 29.97? Walker, you said it was 30. Aha, there was a problem. We outsmarted ourselves. We said if the Brits can do 25, well, we can do 30. So we set it up for 30. But when we broadcast 30 frames per second over the air, and related to other technical problems, we found out that the audio and video would get out of sync and the colors would get messy. So the audio and video getting out of sync once in a while would create like a bad Japanese dubbed movie. Godzilla! Right?
What is it?
A creature from the Jurassic Age.
Where? Yeah.
So, and then the colors going whack because of electrical current and stuff like that. So what we ended up doing is we had to drop a frame every now and then to get everything back in sync. And I'm going to say, and there's really a lot more to it, but I'm going to say that the video is coming along and here's the audio. If you've edited on Premiere, you see you have a video track and audio track. Well, it's kind of like looking at it like this, and then you had to drop a frame to get everything back in sync again. It's also related to the colors, like I said. Get the colors back in sync again. So if you drop a frame every now and then, the average is 29.97. You really can't do 97% of a frame, but the average over a minute or whatever comes out to be 29.97 frames per second. Useless trivia. You only need to know it for the state test, unless you like this kind of historical trivia stuff, which I do now. When I was your age, I hated history, but now I actually think it's kind of fun. So NTSC 29.97 was the standard forever, But really now it doesn't matter that much. We just shoot in 30 frames because it's all digital and everything goes on YouTube is digital, and so there's not even that much broadcast, and so it doesn't really matter that much. That's what I'm going to say to just keep it simple. Moving on, circle the initial for a scan rate that has consecutive lines. If it's consecutive lines, is it I or P? Is it I or P if it's consecutive lines? Come on, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You know that one. Now you know this stuff. You're so technically smart. Next time you go shopping for a TV for Christmas, tell your parents, back away, I know what I'm doing. Well, what does this mean? I know what it means, because you should be able to do this now. If it only said 480 lines of resolution on the TV box, would you buy it? Dad, don't buy that one. Why? Because it's only standard definition. In fact, don't even buy anything that's not 4K anymore. Don't buy anything that's under 65 inches. Buy a 65-inch or bigger UHD TV, because that's where the standard is going and that's where you can see that resolution. Back to this though. 720p. 720 is the lines of resolution. P stands for what? P stands for it being able to do progressive. And 29.97 is very simply the NTSC standard here in America. What if I was over in Europe and it only said 29.97? Would I be able to watch any of my BBC shows? Who likes BBC stuff? Monty Python. No, that's really old. I don't even know what is on BBC right now today that you guys would like. But BBC creates some good stuff, and you would not be able to watch it if you're over in England because they have the PAL format. Who remembers how many frames per second the PAL format is? 25. What if I bought Downton Abbey? It was a big show, I don't know, 8 years ago. Your mom and dad like it, so you buy it for them for Christmas, and it comes from the United Kingdom, and it's in the PAL format. And they go to put it in their DVD player. Thank you, let's watch Downton Abbey. And you are lucky because it won't play, so you can actually go play video games because you don't have to sit and watch Downton Abbey with your family. Okay, now you say 1080p 30. Who knows what that means? That many lines of resolution, progressive, 30 frames per second. Interlaced, 60 frames per second. And the 60 frames per second is becoming a standard too, by the way. We shoot fairly often in 60 frames per second. And then UHD is ultra high definition, and it's somewhere between 3,500 and 4,000 lines. Okay, moving on. Two of the most common aspect ratios in television. Old school was 4:3. That means it was a ratio. Okay, you guys all know it's 8.5 by 11 inches, but it could be a ratio, kind of like a fraction. Don't think of it literally as 4:3 inches, but let's say that it is 3 inches tall, or 3, whatever you want to put in the blank there, by 4, okay? If we blew it up, it'd be 3 feet by 4 feet, or any fraction that relates to that. Okay, so 4:3 is old school, 16:9 is today. Everything is 16:9. Your TV monitors are 16:9. Most tablets are 16:9. My phone is not, though. My phone's aspect ratio is probably more like 2:8, which is kind of weird. So we have too many different kinds of aspect ratios, but that's what that is. So if you see an old TV someone has in their house and it looks a little bit more square, it is. It's closer to a square than a rectangle. This is very much a rectangle, and again, just about everything, including what we're projecting right now, is a ratio of 16:9. What is a virtual studio? Virtual means it's not real. It's not like tangible, it's virtual. It's like those VR goggles. You're not really like swimming or fighting, 20 terrorists. Well, virtual studio means you've got a green screen. Virtual studio means you've got a set that is not real. You didn't really pay for a $100,000 set built by a carpenter. You've got green stuff everywhere, and you take out the green and replace it with something else. It looks like we're inside a spaceship or whatever. Do we do virtual studio? Yeah, we just do one green screen. We have done other things before. You could do other things, like you could have green somewhere in front of the anchors, and you could have something that is there. You could put up our school flag, or you could put up what looks like another TV that is actually running, showing the broadcast, those kinds of things. All right, congratulations. You made it through the technical details section